I had loved Sophia Sterling for 5 years. 5 years of late-night conversations, stolen moments, quiet promises, and dreams about a future that seemed impossible to everyone except us. She was a billionaire heiress, born into a world of private jets, luxury estates, and boardrooms where people discussed millions as casually as ordinary people discuss groceries. I came from an ordinary family. My father had worked most of his life to provide for us, and my mother had taught me that a person's character mattered more than the number in their bank account. Sophia had always believed the same thing. At least, that's what she told me. "I don't care about your money," she once whispered while we sat together beneath the lights of a quiet park. I smiled. "You say that now. I'll say it forever. You're a Sterling, and you're the man I love." She leaned her head against my shoulder. "That's all that matters." For 5 years, I believed her. Then her father found out about us. Richard Sterling didn't shout when he first confronted me. That would have been easier. Instead, he looked at me with the cold expression of a man who had spent his entire life deciding what other people were worth. "You're serious about my daughter?" he asked. "Yes." He stared at me. "And what exactly can you offer her?" I knew what he wanted me to say. Money, influence, a powerful family, a business empire. But I had none of those things. "I can offer her loyalty," I answered. Richard's expression hardened. "Loyalty doesn't maintain a billion-dollar lifestyle." "I know. You don't belong in her world." I looked directly into his eyes. "Maybe she doesn't need me to belong to your world." For a moment, his silence told me everything. Richard wasn't interested in what Sophia wanted. He was interested in what he believed was best for the Sterling family. A few days later, Sophia told me her father had introduced her to Alexander Kane. Alexander was the son of another billionaire family. He had the education, connections, wealth, appearance, and reputation Richard wanted. "He wants me to meet him," Sophia said. "And what do you want?" "You." I reached for her hand. "Then don't worry." But I should have known things wouldn't remain that simple. Richard began applying pressure. Family dinners became arguments. Business discussions became lectures about responsibility. Sophia was constantly reminded that she was not just a daughter. She was an heiress. She carried the Sterling name. Eventually, rumors started appearing. People whispered that I was only dating Sophia because I wanted her money. At first, she defended me. "He doesn't want my money," she told her father. Richard shook his head. "You're too emotionally involved to see the truth. I know him better than you do." "You think you do?" Slowly, those words began planting doubt in her mind. Sophia became quieter. Our conversations became shorter. She stopped telling me what was happening at home. Whenever I asked, she smiled and said, "I'm just tired." But I could feel her slipping away. One night, I finally confronted her. "What's happening to us?" She looked at me for several seconds. "I don't know. You've been avoiding me." "I've been thinking." "About what?" Her eyes filled with tears. "About my future. And am I part of it?" She looked away. That silence hurt more than any answer. Finally, she whispered, "I'm going to marry Alexander." My entire world stopped. "What?" "I've decided." "You love me." "I know." "Then why?" She pressed her lips together, fighting back tears. "My family believes is better for me." "And you believe that?" She didn't answer. I stepped closer. "Sophia, look at me." She finally did. Her eyes were already full of tears. "I don't want to lose you," she whispered. "Then don't." She closed her eyes. "I have to." Those words destroyed something inside me. I walked away that night believing I had lost the woman I loved. Months later, the wedding arrived. The Sterling estate was transformed into a palace of flowers, crystal lights, expensive cars, and hundreds of guests. I wasn't supposed to be there, but I went anyway. I needed to see her one last time. When Sophia entered the ceremony, every person turned toward her. She looked breathtaking, the perfect billionaire bride, the perfect daughter, the perfect future wife. But I could see what everyone else couldn't. She was heartbroken. When our eyes met across the room, she froze. A tear slipped down her cheek. For one painful second, neither of us looked away. Then I understood. She wasn't marrying Alexander because she loved him. She was marrying him because she wanted to forget me. And as I watched the woman I had loved for 5 years walk toward another man, I realized our story wasn't ending because her heart had changed. It was ending because she had been convinced that loving me was something she could no longer afford. I lowered my eyes, and for the first time, I wondered whether losing Sophia would be the end of my life, or the beginning of a completely different one. I left Sophia's wedding before the ceremony ended. I couldn't stay. Every second inside that church felt like someone was pressing a blade against my chest. I had watched the woman I loved for 5 years walk toward another man. I had heard the vows. I had seen the ring. And I had watched Sophia cry while promising herself to Alexander. That was enough. I walked outside without saying goodbye to anyone. The moment I reached my car, I finally allowed myself to breathe. My hands were shaking. I stared at the wedding invitation sitting on the passenger seat. Then I crushed it. "I can't do this," I whispered. I drove straight back to my apartment. The place was small, but every corner carried memories of Sophia. A photograph of us stood beside my bed. Her handwritten note was taped above my desk. A bracelet she had given me rested inside a drawer. There were tickets from our first trip together, a small stuffed animal she had won for me at a carnival, and dozens of photographs from 5 years of happiness. I looked at all of them. Then I started destroying them. I tore the photographs apart. I threw the bracelet against the wall. I ripped her letters into pieces. One picture refused to tear. It was the first photograph we had ever taken together. Sophia was laughing. I was looking at her instead of the camera. I stared at it for a long time. Then I finally dropped it into the trash. I sat on the floor, and I cried. I didn't know how long I stayed there. Hours passed before someone knocked on my door. "It's me," Daniel called. I didn't answer. He knocked again. "Open the door." "I don't want to see anyone." "I don't care." The door opened. Daniel stepped inside and stopped when he saw the destroyed photographs around me. His expression changed. He didn't ask what happened. He already knew. He sat beside me. After several minutes, he finally said, "You have to accept it." "Accept what?" "That Sophia made her choice." I shook my head. "She still loves me." Daniel sighed. "You don't know that." I saw her face. "You saw a bride crying at her wedding. She wasn't happy. That doesn't change what she did." I looked at him. "She didn't stop loving me." "Maybe she didn't," Daniel said quietly. "But she still married someone else." His words hurt because they were true. Still, I couldn't let go. A week passed. I barely slept. Then my phone received a message. It was from Sophia. "Can we meet? Please." My heart started beating faster. I stared at the screen for almost a minute before replying. "Where?" Her answer came quickly. "The cafe, where we first told each other we loved each other." I knew I shouldn't go, but I went anyway. When I entered the cafe, Sophia was already sitting in the corner. She looked different. The woman sitting there wasn't the confident billionaire heiress everyone admired. She looked exhausted. Her eyes were red. I sat across from her. Neither of us spoke at first. Finally, she whispered, "I'm sorry." I looked down. "Why did you ask me to come?" "Because I needed to see you." "You're married now." "I know." "Then why?" Her eyes filled with tears. "Because I still love you." My heart broke all over again. "Then why did you marry him?" She covered her face. "I had no choice." There is always a choice. Not when your family's entire future is at risk. I stared at her. She slowly lowered her hands. "My father's company is in serious trouble. We were losing investors. Banks were demanding repayment. The company needed a major alliance with Alexander's family." She nodded. "His family's investment can save Sterling." I was silent. "So you sacrificed us?" "I sacrificed myself too." "You could have told me." "What would you have done?" "I would have stayed." "Exactly." Her voice broke. "You would have stayed, and I would have watched you destroy your life trying to save mine." I looked away. She reached across the table. "I need to forget you." A tear rolled down her cheek. "I need to become Alexander's wife. I need to protect my family. I need to stop thinking about you." I pulled my hand away. You can't keep coming back to me whenever your marriage hurts. She froze. I can't be your secret. I don't want that. But that's what this becomes. She started crying. I love you. And I love you. The words came out painfully. But I can't live like this. She looked at me. So this is goodbye. I nodded. It has to be. I stood. She grabbed my hand. Please. I gently pulled away. If you chose your family, then I have to choose myself. Her tears fell freely. I never wanted to hurt you. I know. I walked toward the door. Behind me, I heard her whisper my name. I stopped. For 1 second, I wanted to turn around. I wanted to run back to her. But Daniel's words came back to me. She had made her choice. So I opened the door and walked away. That night, I made a decision. I would disappear from Sophia's life. Not because I stopped loving her, but because loving someone should never require you to destroy yourself. I left the city 3 days after my meeting with Sophia. I didn't say goodbye to anyone except Daniel. There was nothing left for me there. Every street reminded me of her. Every restaurant carried a memory. Every familiar building seemed to whisper her name. So I packed a suitcase, closed the door of my small apartment, and left the city behind. Daniel came with me. You don't have to do this alone, he said. I know. And you're not allowed to give up. I smiled faintly. I'm not giving up. Then what are you doing? I looked out the car window as the city disappeared behind us. Starting over. We rented a small office in another city. It was barely large enough for 2 desks and a few computers, but to me, it felt like freedom. Months earlier, I had developed a simple technology concept in my spare time. It wasn't revolutionary. It wasn't backed by investors. It wasn't connected to any billionaire family. It was simply an idea I believed could solve a real problem. For the first time, I decided to take it seriously. Daniel helped me build the business. We worked until midnight, sometimes until sunrise. There were days when we had no clients, days when our bank account was nearly empty, days when I wondered whether I had made a terrible mistake. But whenever I felt discouraged, Daniel reminded me why we had started. You're not building this to prove something to Sophia, he told me. I know. Then stop thinking about her. I laughed. I'm trying. And slowly, I did. I stopped checking her social media. I stopped wondering whether she was happy. I stopped asking myself whether she regretted marrying Alexander. My life became about something else. Work, growth, purpose. For the first time, I began measuring myself by what I could create rather than by whether Sophia Sterling had chosen me. Meanwhile, Sophia began her new life with Alexander. From the outside, their marriage looked perfect. Photographs showed them attending charity galas. Business magazines called them a power couple. They appeared together at luxury events, smiling beneath flashing cameras. But behind closed doors, their marriage was nothing like the pictures. Alexander was never openly cruel. That almost made things worse. He was polite, controlled, always calm, but he expected Sophia to behave exactly as he wanted. You shouldn't attend that event without me. Why? Because you're my wife. He began deciding which social events she should attend, which people she should meet, how much time she should spend away from home. At first, Sophia tried to ignore it. She told herself that marriage required compromise. But slowly, compromise became control. Alexander wanted the perfect billionaire wife. Elegant, quiet, loyal, predictable, and most importantly, completely devoted to the life he had planned. Sophia tried desperately to become that woman, but forgetting me proved impossible. A song would remind her of our late-night conversations. A street vendor selling cheap food would remind her of the nights when we had laughed over meals that cost almost nothing. Sometimes she would pass a cafe and remember the first time I told her I loved her. And then there was the promise we had made years earlier. No matter what happens, we'll stay together. She had broken it, but she couldn't erase it. One night, Alexander went to bed early. Sophia remained alone in the living room. She stared at her phone. For several minutes, she hesitated. Then she opened her laptop. She typed my name into the search bar. The results appeared. Sophia froze. My company was there. So were interviews, business articles, and photographs from technology conferences. She clicked on one article. The headline described a young entrepreneur who had transformed a small idea into a rapidly growing technology company. Sophia stared at my photograph. I looked different, older, more confident. There was something in my expression she had never seen before. Peace. She scrolled through the article. The company had expanded faster than anyone expected. Major investors had started showing interest. Industry leaders were calling my work innovative. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. "You did it," she whispered. She wasn't surprised that I had succeeded. She was surprised by something else. I had built a life without her. A life she was no longer part of. The bedroom door opened. Alexander stood there. "What are you doing?" Sophia quickly closed the laptop. "Nothing." He looked at her suspiciously. "You've been sitting here for 20 minutes. I couldn't sleep." Alexander walked closer. "Who were you looking at?" "No one." His expression hardened. "Sophia." She swallowed. "It's someone from my past." "Who?" She looked away. "Just someone I used to know." Alexander watched her carefully. "An ex?" Sophia said nothing. That was enough. His jaw tightened. "What's his name?" She finally answered. "Someone I loved before I met you." The room became silent. Alexander's face changed. Sophia immediately regretted saying it. He didn't shout. Instead, he smiled coldly. "I see." He turned and walked away. Sophia remained sitting alone. Later that night, she returned to the laptop. She looked at my photograph one more time. Then the tears came. She pressed her hand against her mouth to keep herself from making a sound. She had married Alexander to forget me. She had convinced herself that distance would kill her feelings. But now she understood the truth. Distance hadn't erased her love. It had only taught her how much she had lost. And somewhere far away, I was building a life that no longer needed her. For the first time, Sophia wondered whether the sacrifice she had made for her family had cost her the one thing money could never replace. 3 years passed. 3 years since I walked away from Sophia. 3 years since I promised myself that I would never again allow someone else's decision to determine my worth. During those 3 years, my small technology company became something I had never imagined. We grew from 2 people working in a tiny office into a company with hundreds of employees. Investors came. International clients came. Opportunities one once thought were impossible appeared one after another. Daniel remained beside me through all of it. "You realize you actually became successful," he joked one morning. I laughed. "I was hoping you wouldn't notice." He shook his head. 3 years ago, you were crying over a billionaire heiress. Now you're giving interviews about technology." "I've grown." "You definitely have." I smiled. But there was one place I had avoided returning to. The city where everything had begun. Then, 3 years after leaving, I received an invitation to speak at one of the country's biggest technology conferences. The event was being held in my old city. I almost declined. Daniel looked at me. "Are you afraid of seeing her?" I thought about it. "No." "Then go." So I went. The conference hall was packed. Business leaders, investors, journalists, entrepreneurs, and executives filled the room. When I stepped onto the stage, the lights blinded me for a moment. Then I looked toward the audience. And I saw her. Sophia. She was sitting beside Alexander. For a second, everything around me disappeared. 3 years vanished. I remembered the cafe, the wedding, her tears, my decision to leave. But then I looked at myself. I wasn't that broken man anymore. I took a breath and began my speech. I talked about technology, failure, risk, building something from nothing. But most importantly, I talked about believing in yourself when nobody else does. When I finished, the audience stood and applauded. I stepped away from the microphone, and I saw Sophia staring at me. She looked stunned. I could almost hear the question in her eyes. "How did you become this man?" The answer was simple. I had no choice but to become him. After the event, I was speaking with several business leaders when someone approached me. "Sophia." She stopped a few feet away. "Can we talk?" I nodded. We moved into a quiet hallway. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, she said, "I'm proud of you." I smiled politely. Thank you. She blinked. That wasn't the reaction she expected. You're not angry. Why would I be? Because of what happened. I looked at her. That was 3 years ago. But you loved me. I did. Did. I nodded. I once loved you enough to destroy myself for you. Her eyes filled with tears. But eventually, I learned something. What? Love shouldn't require you to lose yourself. She lowered her head. I never wanted you to suffer. But I did. I know. And I survived. She looked up at me. I still think about you. I remained silent. I tried to forget you, she continued. I know. How? Because you wouldn't be standing here if you had. She smiled sadly. You always understood me. I used to. Her eyes filled with tears again. Do you hate me? No. Do you still love me? That question stayed between us. I could have lied. Instead, I told her the truth. I don't know what love means anymore when it comes to us. She closed her eyes. A tear slipped down her cheek. Then a voice interrupted us. Sophia. Alexander. He walked toward us with a cold expression. His eyes moved from Sophia to me. What are you doing with my wife? I didn't respond. Alexander stepped closer. I think you should stay away from her. I calmly looked at him. I have no intention of interfering with your marriage. You already have. No. I shook my head. You don't need to fear me. Alexander's expression hardened. I looked directly into his eyes. Your wife chose you. Silence. Sophia looked at me. Pain filled her eyes. Because she knew the truth. She had chosen Alexander once, but she hadn't chosen him with her heart. And now, after 3 years, that decision was becoming impossible to live with. Alexander placed a hand on Sophia's shoulder. She didn't move, but she didn't lean toward him either. I noticed. So did he. I stepped backward. I have nothing more to say. Sophia whispered my name. I stopped. She looked as if she wanted to say something, but no words came. I walked away. This time, I didn't feel broken. I didn't feel angry. I didn't even feel victorious. I simply felt free. Behind me, Sophia remained standing beside the man she had married. But for the first time, I understood something. Alexander wasn't afraid that I would take his wife. He was afraid because he finally realized something far more dangerous. He could have Sophia's hand. He could have her name beside his. He could have the marriage certificate. But he could never force her heart to believe. Sophia's marriage began falling apart soon after the conference. At first, the arguments were small. Alexander would ask where she had been, who she had spoken to, why she had taken so long to answer his calls. But eventually, his questions became accusations. One night, Sophia returned home from a charity meeting. Alexander was waiting in the living room. Who were you with? She placed her purse on the table. Business associates. Which ones? She frowned. Why does it matter? He stood. Because I know you. You don't know me. His expression hardened. You met him again. Sophia went silent. You're talking about him. Yes. He stepped closer. Are you still in love with him? For years, Sophia had denied the truth. This time, she didn't. Yes. Alexander froze. She looked directly into his eyes. I married you to forget him. Her voice trembled. I failed. Alexander's face turned red. How dare you say that to me? It's the truth. You're my wife. I know. Then act like one. Sophia shook her head. I spent 3 years pretending. Pretending what? That I could build a life without him. Alexander slammed his hand against the table. You're still thinking about him? Yes. The word destroyed whatever remained of their marriage. After that night, Alexander became even more controlling. He checked Sophia's phone. He questioned every meeting. He demanded to know where she was and who she was with. But Sophia stopped apologizing. She had spent years sacrificing her happiness to protect her family. She wasn't willing to do it anymore. While her marriage collapsed, problems began appearing in my company. One of our biggest investors suddenly withdrew. Then another followed. A major international contract was cancelled without warning. Daniel rushed into my office with a folder. This isn't normal. I looked at the documents. What's happening? Someone is pressuring our partners. Who? Daniel stared at me. I think it's Alexander. I remained silent. He has the connections, Daniel continued. His family's influence reaches banks, investors, suppliers, everyone. Do we have proof? No. Then we don't accuse him. Daniel looked frustrated. He's attacking us. I know. So we're just going to do nothing. No. I closed the folder. We protect the company. And if he keeps attacking, then we respond with facts. Daniel stuttered me. You're not going after him. I shook my head. I won't become the villain in Sophia's story. That evening, I stayed in the office until midnight. I remembered the man I had been 3 years earlier. I had wanted revenge. I had wanted Sophia's family to regret everything they had done. But I wasn't that man anymore. I had built my company without them. I wouldn't destroy myself by becoming obsessed with them again. Meanwhile, Sophia began discovering the truth about Alexander's family. She found financial reports hidden inside an old office. The numbers didn't make sense. Debts were much higher than publicly reported. Several companies within the Kane Empire were struggling. Major assets had been pledged as collateral. Sophia read through the documents with growing disbelief. Then she understood. Alexander's family wasn't as powerful as everyone believed. Their empire was already collapsing, and her marriage hadn't simply been about love or family expectations. It had been a business arrangement designed to protect both families. Sophia had sacrificed everything for a marriage built on another lie. She confronted Alexander. You knew. He didn't answer. You knew your family was in trouble. We were handling it. You needed Sterling. And Sterling needed us. Sophia stared at him. So our marriage was a transaction. Alexander's silence answered her. She walked away. The next person she confronted was her father. Richard was sitting in his office when Sophia entered. You knew, she said. He looked up. Knew what? That Alexander's family was struggling. Richard said nothing. You knew our marriage was supposed to protect both companies. Sophia. You knew. Richard finally sighed. I did what I thought was necessary. For whom? For you. No. Her voice shook. You did it for the Sterling name. Richard stood. I was trying to protect your future. You destroyed it. I believed love was a luxury you couldn't afford. Sophia stared at him. Then she said the word she had been carrying for years. You taught me how to protect an empire. Her eyes filled with tears. But you never taught me how to protect my heart. Richard couldn't answer. Sophia turned toward the door. For the first time in her life, she wasn't asking her father for permission. She was making her own decision. And somewhere across the city, I was still fighting to protect everything I had built. I didn't know what Sophia would do next. But I knew what I would do. I would not destroy Alexander. I would not attack Richard. I would not use Sophia's regret against her. If they wanted to bring me down, they would have to face the same truth I had learned years ago. I could lose almost everything, but I would never lose myself again. Sophia came to my office late one evening. I was still working when my assistant told me she was waiting outside. For a moment, I couldn't move. After everything that had happened, I hadn't expected to see her there. Send her in, I finally said. The door opened. Sophia walked inside alone. She looked exhausted. Not the polished heiress I remembered from magazines. Not the perfect billionaire wife. Just Sophia, the woman I had loved for 5 years. She closed the door behind her. I need to tell you the truth. I leaned back in my chair. I'm listening. She took a breath. Before the wedding, my father threatened me. I frowned. What do you mean? He told me that if I refused to marry Alexander, he would cut me off completely. I stared at her. He said I would lose my inheritance. That wasn't all. Her voice trembled. He threatened to destroy your family's financial future. I stood. What? He knew your family's business was vulnerable. He said he could use his connections to make sure your family lost everything. Anger rushed through me. You knew. She nodded. You knew he could do that to my family, and you still married Alexander. I thought I had no choice. You could have told me. I was afraid. I walked toward the window. For years, I had imagined 1,000 reasons why Sophia had left me. None of them had prepared me for this. Why didn't you fight beside me? She started crying. Because I was terrified. Terrified of what? Losing everything. She wiped her tears. I was afraid my father would destroy your family. I was afraid my mother would blame me. I was afraid Sterling would collapse. I was afraid that if I chose you, everyone I loved would suffer. I turned toward her. So you decided to suffer alone. Yes. That wasn't your decision to make. I know. No, Sophia. My voice became sharper. You didn't trust me enough to let me choose whether I was willing to fight. She lowered her head. You're right. That answer hurt more than an argument would have. I sat down. For years, I had believed she had chosen wealth over me. But now I understood something different. We hadn't stopped loving each other. Fear had made our decisions for us. And somehow, that realization hurt even more. Sophia stepped closer. I never stopped loving you. I looked at her. I know. I tried. She gave a broken laugh. I tried so hard to forget you. You married Alexander. I thought that would work. Did it? She shook her head. No. Silence filled the room. Then she whispered, Take me back. My heart tightened. There was a time when those words were everything I wanted. I had dreamed about hearing them. But now that they were finally spoken, I couldn't simply run into her arms. I love you, I said. Her eyes filled with hope. But loving you is easy. Her expression changed. Trusting you again won't be. She looked down. I understand. I need you to understand something else. She looked at me. I can't erase what happened just because I know why you did it. I know. You chose fear. Yes. And I paid the price. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I know. I walked toward my desk. Sophia reached into her purse. Then she placed a small box on the table. What is this? Open it. I lifted the lid. Inside were letters. Dozens of them. I recognized my handwriting immediately. My old letters to her. The ones I had written when we were younger. The ones I thought she had thrown away. I looked at her. You kept these. Every single one. I picked up one of the envelopes. The edges were worn. Some had clearly been opened many times. You told me you were trying to forget me. I was. She smiled sadly. I just wasn't very good at it. I looked through the box. Every letter was there. Every memory. Every promise. Every stupid romantic sentence I had written when I believed our love could survive anything. You never forgot me. No. She wiped her tears. I only tried to convince myself that I had. I closed the box. For the first time, I understood how complicated our story really was. Sophia hadn't stopped loving me. She hadn't replaced me. She hadn't chosen Alexander because he was better. She had been afraid. And I had been hurt. Both things could be true. I looked at her. I don't know what happens next. She nodded. I'll wait. Don't. She looked surprised. I don't want you waiting for me. Why? Because if we ever find our way back to each other, I want it to be because we both chose it freely. She cried again. But this time, she smiled. I understand. She picked up her purse and walked toward the door. Before leaving, she turned around. I loved you then. I looked at her. And I love you now. The door closed behind her. I remained alone with the box of letters. I opened the first one again. My younger handwriting stared back at me, and for the first time in years, I allowed myself to admit something I had been trying to bury. I still loved Sophia. I just wasn't willing to lose myself. Alexander's financial problems finally exploded. For months, his family had managed to hide the truth behind polished appearances, expensive events, and carefully controlled announcements. But numbers could only be hidden for so long. One morning, several major investments collapsed at the same time. Banks demanded explanations. Investors began pulling their money. Business partners canceled agreements. Within days, the Kane family's supposedly untouchable empire was facing a crisis. Then the evidence appeared. Financial records revealed that Alexander had manipulated company accounts to maintain the appearance of stability. He had moved money between subsidiaries, concealed losses, and presented assets as far more valuable than they actually were. The man everyone had called a billionaire heir was suddenly exposed as the man who had been desperately trying to look like one. Richard's alliance with the Kane family collapsed immediately. But Alexander needed someone to blame. He chose me. His lawyers released a public statement accusing my company of attacking the Kane empire and deliberately destroying its investments. The accusations spread quickly. News channels repeated his claims. Business websites published stories questioning my company. Daniel stormed into my office. "He's trying to make you responsible for his collapse." "I know. We need to respond." I looked at the evidence we had collected. "We will." For once, I wasn't going to remain silent. But I also wasn't going to attack Alexander. I simply wanted the truth known. Our legal team released documents showing that the financial problems inside the Kane empire had begun long before my company ever entered the picture. Bank records, investment reports, contract dates, everything proved the same thing. Alexander's empire had been collapsing because of its own hidden problems. We had nothing to do with it. The public accusation against me collapsed almost immediately. Then something unexpected happened. Sophia announced that she would speak at the press conference. Daniel looked at me. "Are you sure about this?" "No." "Then why let her?" "Because it's her truth." The next morning, the room was filled with reporters. Cameras flashed as Sophia walked onto the stage. She stood alone. No Alexander. No Richard. No family representatives. Just Sophia. She took the microphone. "My marriage to Alexander Kane was not built on genuine love." The room became silent. Sophia continued. "I married him because of pressure from my family." Reporters immediately began shouting questions. She raised a hand. "I want to finish." Her voice remained steady. "My father believed that this marriage would protect the Sterling family. I believed refusing it would destroy the people I loved." She took a breath. "But I was wrong." Sophia looked directly into the cameras. "I allowed fear to make the most important decision of my life." The reporters were silent. "I am not blaming anyone for my choices," she said. "I made them, and I have to live with them." Behind the cameras, Richard watched with a furious expression. When the press conference ended, he confronted her. "How could you do this to your family?" Sophia looked at him calmly. "I spent years doing exactly what you wanted. You're destroying the Sterling name." "No." She shook her head. "I am finally refusing to destroy myself for it." Richard stared at her. "You don't understand what you're giving up." "I do." She removed her wedding ring. "I am giving up a life that was never truly mine." Then she walked away. Alexander was waiting outside. His confidence was gone. He looked desperate. "Sophia, please." She stopped. "I need you." She turned toward him. "You need my family's support." "That's not what I mean. You said you couldn't survive without Sterling." "I can fix everything." "No, Alexander." Her voice was quiet. "You wanted my name." He looked at her. "You never wanted my heart." She walked away. For the first time in years, Sophia had chosen something without asking her father. Without asking Alexander. Without asking me. She had chosen herself. I watched from a distance. Every part of me wanted to go to her. I wanted to tell her that she wasn't alone. I wanted to take her hand. But I didn't move. Because this time, she needed to learn how to stand without someone carrying her. If she came back to me, it couldn't be because she had lost her husband. It couldn't be because her family had fallen apart. It couldn't be because she needed somewhere safe to go. She had to choose me because she wanted me, not because she needed me. Sophia walked across the parking lot alone. No billionaire family surrounded her. No husband stood beside her. No empire protected her. For the first time, she had no idea what her future would look like. And somehow, she looked stronger than she ever had before. I watched until she disappeared from sight. Daniel stood beside me. "You're not going after her?" I shook my head. "No." "Why?" "Because if she really wants a future with me, she has to build her own future first." Daniel smiled. "You've changed." I looked toward the empty road. So has she. And for the first time, I realized that love wasn't always about running toward someone. Sometimes, the greatest act of love was standing still and allowing them to become strong enough to choose you freely. Sophia moved into a modest apartment a few weeks after leaving Alexander. There was no marble entrance, no private elevator, no staff waiting outside, no expensive cars waiting downstairs. Just a small apartment with 2 bedrooms, an old kitchen, and a view of an ordinary street. For the first time in her life, Sophia had to live without the protection of her family's wealth. And surprisingly, she didn't complain. She woke up early. She made her own coffee. She took public transportation when necessary. She learned how much ordinary things actually cost. But the biggest change happened at work. Sophia still owned shares in several smaller businesses, but instead of sitting in a luxurious office and signing documents prepared by other people, she chose one struggling company and took a real leadership position. Her first week was brutal. Employees questioned her decisions. Managers challenged her. Some openly doubted whether a billionaire heiress could understand their problems. Sophia didn't get angry. She listened. Then she learned. She spent mornings reviewing operations and afternoons meeting employees. She asked questions. She studied financial reports. She visited warehouses. She learned how the company actually made money. One evening, an employee told her, "You're different now." Sophia smiled. I had to become different. Meanwhile, my company continued growing. We expanded into new markets and hired more employees. Daniel remained my closest partner, but I rarely asked him about Sophia. I had made a promise to myself. I wouldn't chase her. If she wanted to rebuild her life, she had to do it without me pushing her forward. Sophia never asked me for money. She never requested a business favor. She never tried to use our past to gain access to my company. That mattered more than any apology. One evening, she met Daniel at a small restaurant. I didn't know about the meeting. She looked nervous. "How is he?" Daniel knew exactly who she meant. "He's doing well." She smiled. "Really well." "Very." She looked down at her hands. "Does he ever talk about me?" Daniel was quiet for a moment. "He still cares about you." Her eyes lifted. "But he'll never chase you again." Sophia nodded slowly. "I understand." Daniel studied her. "You're not angry?" "No." She smiled sadly. "He shouldn't chase me." "Why?" "Because I need to prove I can stand on my own." Daniel smiled. "That might be the smartest thing you've ever said." Months passed. I began hearing small things about Sophia. Not from her, from people in the business world. Her company was improving. Employee turnover had fallen. Revenue was slowly increasing. She had personally helped renegotiate several contracts. She was becoming a real leader. But what surprised me most wasn't her business success. It was what she talked about. She no longer discussed luxury. She no longer cared about being seen at exclusive events. When reporters asked about her future, she talked about employees, responsibility, long-term growth, building something meaningful. One afternoon, Daniel showed me an interview. Sophia was asked what she had learned from losing her family's wealth and influence. She answered quietly, "I learned that owning something doesn't mean you understand its value." I stared at the screen. That sentence stayed with me. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She wasn't trying to convince me. She was simply changing. Eventually, I agreed to meet her. We chose a quiet cafe. When Sophia arrived, she looked nervous. She sat across from me. "Thank you for meeting me." I nodded. She didn't reach for my hand. She didn't ask me to come back. She didn't say she couldn't live without me. Instead, she looked directly into my eyes. "I know I broke your trust." I remained silent. "I don't expect you to repair it for me." Something inside me shifted. Those were the words I had needed to hear. Not "I can't live without you." Not "please forgive me." Not "I made a mistake." She was finally taking responsibility. "I don't know if I can trust you again," I admitted. "I know. I don't know if we can ever be what we were." "I know. And I can't promise you anything." She smiled softly. "I didn't come here for a promise." I looked at her. "Then why did you come?" "To show you that I'm not asking you to save me anymore." For the first time, I believed her. We sat together in silence. There was no dramatic reunion, no kiss, no promise of forever. Just 2 people sitting across from each other, carrying years of memories between them. When we finally left the cafe, Sophia didn't ask me to walk her home. She didn't ask when we'd meet again. She simply said, "Take care of yourself." "You too." She walked away. I watched her disappear down the street. And for the first time since our story had begun, I didn't feel the need to chase after her. Something had changed. Not because the past had disappeared. It hadn't. The betrayal was still there. The pain was still there. But now, alongside those memories, there was something new. Possibility. Not forgiveness yet. Not love restored. Just the quiet possibility that two people who had once destroyed each other might someday learn how to love without losing themselves. A year passed. By then, Sophia's business had completely changed. The company that had once struggled under careless management was finally profitable again. But this time, the success belonged to her. She had earned it. She had worked through the difficult years without asking her family's name to open doors for her. Employees respected her. Partners trusted her. And when the company succeeded, Sophia didn't celebrate by buying something expensive. She celebrated by giving bonuses to the employees who had stayed with her during the hardest months. When Daniel told me about it, I smiled. She really changed. She did, he said. Around the same time, Richard finally accepted something he had spent years refusing to understand. His daughter didn't need him to control her future. One evening, he came to my office. He looked older than I remembered. Less powerful. More human. "I owe you an apology," he said. I remained quiet. "I destroyed something between you and Sophia because I thought I knew what was best for her." "You didn't." "I know." He looked down. "I believed wealth could protect her from pain." I said nothing. "I was wrong." Then he said something I never expected. "I was wrong to threaten you. I was wrong to manipulate Sophia. And I was wrong to treat you as though you were beneath our family." I accepted his apology. But I didn't pretend the past had disappeared. "Richard, I forgive you." He looked at me. "But some choices cannot be undone." He nodded. "I know. You can't give us those years back." "No. And you can't erase what Sophia went through." "I know. But you can make sure you never control her life again." Richard gave a small smile. "I won't." After that, Sophia and I began spending time together again. Not as lovers. Not yet. We started as friends. We had coffee. We talked about work. Sometimes we laughed about old memories. Other times, we discussed things we had never been able to talk about before. The difference was that there were no secrets anymore. Sophia didn't hide her fears. I didn't hide my doubts. One evening, she said, "I never stopped loving you." I looked at her. "I know. But I understand something now." "What?" "Love alone isn't enough." She paused. "It needs trust." I nodded. "And courage." She smiled. "And choice." I looked at her. "You're right." She reached across the table. "I chose you once because I thought I had no choice." Her voice became softer. "Now I want to choose you because I do." Her words stayed with me. I had spent years believing that our love had been destroyed by money. But perhaps money had only exposed something deeper. We had been young. We had been afraid. We had allowed other people to make decisions for us. This time, things were different. I had built my own life. Sophia had built hers. Neither of us needed the other to survive. That was exactly why being together might finally mean something. A few weeks later, we returned to the park where we had once dreamed about our future. The same paths, the same trees, the same quiet benches. But we were different people. Sophia walked beside me. "I remember this place," she said. "I do too. You promised me once that we'd stay together no matter what." I was young. She smiled. So was I. We walked in silence for a while. Then she stopped. She looked at me. "Do you still believe we have a chance?" I looked into her eyes. There was no pressure in them. No desperation. No expectation. Just hope. I reached for her hand. "Maybe." She smiled. "But this time," I continued, "nobody else gets to choose for us." Her eyes filled with tears. She squeezed my hand. That's all I wanted. We continued walking. For years, I had believed love was about holding on no matter how much it hurt. Now I understood something different. Real love wasn't blind. It wasn't sacrifice without limits. It wasn't obedience to family. And it certainly wasn't giving up your identity for another person. Real love was choosing each other freely. Every day, even when walking away was possible. Especially when walking away was possible. Sophia rested her head lightly against my shoulder. I didn't know what our future would look like. Maybe we'd become lovers again. Maybe we'd discover that friendship was where our story needed to end. For once, I wasn't afraid of not knowing. Neither was she. We didn't need promises. We didn't need rings. We didn't need an empire. We simply needed the freedom to decide for ourselves. As we walked beneath the evening sky, Sophia held my hand. And for the first time since we had fallen in love, our love didn't feel like something we had to protect from the world. It felt like something we had finally chosen for ourselves. Several years later, I sometimes think about the day Sophia married another man. I remember standing inside that wedding hall. I remember seeing her walk toward Alexander. I remember the tears in her eyes. And sometimes I wonder how different our lives might have been if we had been brave enough to fight for each other. Maybe we would have stayed together. Maybe we would have suffered. Maybe we would have failed. I'll never know. But I no longer regret the path we took. Because that pain changed both of us. Sophia and I eventually built a new relationship. Not the relationship we had before. Something stronger. Something built on honesty, trust, and freedom. We never pretended the past had disappeared. We talked about it. We admitted where we had failed. We learned from the mistakes that had once destroyed us. Alexander eventually disappeared from our lives. After rebuilding his career elsewhere, he stopped appearing in business news and became nothing more than a distant memory. I didn't hate him anymore. He had made his choices. So had I. Richard changed too. The powerful man who once believed he could control his daughter's future became quieter with age. He learned to listen. More importantly, he learned that loving someone doesn't mean deciding their life for them. He respected Sophia's choices now, even when he didn't agree with them. Daniel remained my closest friend and business partner. Sometimes we talked about how ridiculous our lives had become. "You remember when you had nothing?" he asked me one evening. I still remember. And now? I looked at Sophia sitting across the room. Now I have everything I actually need. Years after everything began, Sophia and I returned to the cafe where we had first confessed our feelings. The place looked almost exactly the same tables, the same quiet atmosphere. Even the corner where we had once sat together was still there. Sophia smiled as we took our seats. "I remember this place." "So do I." She looked out the window. "I used to think marrying a rich man would help me forget you." I smiled sadly. "Did it work?" She shook her head. "No." She laughed softly. Every luxury reminded me of what I had sacrificed. I reached across the table. She took my hand. "I had everything," she continued. "Money, a beautiful house, a powerful husband, everything people told me I should want." She looked into my eyes, but I still felt like something was missing. "What?" "You." I squeezed her hand. "I used to hate you for leaving me." She lowered her eyes. "I know. I hated your father." She nodded. "I hated Alexander." "I know. And for a long time, I hated myself most of all." She looked surprised. "Why?" "Because I thought I wasn't enough." Her eyes softened. "But you were." "I know that now." I paused. But eventually, I realized something. "What?" "The man you lost wasn't the man you needed to find again." Sophia stared at me. I had changed. She smiled. "So had I." "You couldn't go back to the man you left." "I didn't want to." "Why?" "Because I finally met the man you became." Her eyes filled with tears. I reached across the table. "I don't want the past back." "Neither do I." "I want what we have now." She smiled. "Me too." We stayed there for a long time, talking about everything that had happened. The wedding, the separation, the years apart, the businesses, the mistakes, the forgiveness, the second chance. But one thing had changed completely. Neither of us was afraid anymore. We didn't need permission from our families. We didn't need money to validate our relationship. We didn't need an empire to prove our worth. We simply chose each other. Freely. When we left the cafe that night, Sophia slipped her hand into mine. I looked at her. Are you happy? She smiled. Yes. So am I. We walked down the street together, and as I looked at the woman beside me, I finally understood something I had been searching for since the day she married another man. True love isn't about never losing someone. People change. People make mistakes. Sometimes fear separates two people who still love each other. Sometimes life takes them in completely different directions. But if they grow strong enough, honest enough, and brave enough, they may find their way back. Not because they are afraid of being alone. Not because they need money. Not because their families demand it. But because they freely choose one another. Sophia had once married a rich man because she believed wealth could help her forget me. It couldn't. I had once believed losing Sophia meant losing myself. It didn't. Losing her forced me to discover who I really was. And when we finally found each other again, we weren't the same two people who had fallen in love years earlier. We were stronger, wiser, independent, and finally brave enough to choose. I looked at Sophia and smiled. She smiled back. This time, there was no fear between us. No family pressure. No wealth standing between our hearts. No promises made because someone else demanded them. Just two people holding hands. Two people who had lost each other. Two people who had grown. And two people who, after everything, had finally chosen love freely. That was our real happy ending. Not that we never lost each other, but that, after losing ourselves first, we finally became strong enough to find each other again.